Hey there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and today we finally have From Bath's Gut. So I've wanted to get to this for a while since I first found Bath's, stage name of William Boris Wiesenfeld, on my streaming show Bandwidth, and this is one of those cases where the larger story of the artist can make for one hell of an adventure, because Bath's has actually been active for a while. He first broke out in 2010 with the critically acclaimed and distinctly weird Cerulean, a wonky but forward-thinking project where I can't help but hear some of the roots of future bass and the dubstep that would become popular in the years to come. But he didn't just stay there. His 2013 album Obsidian saw just as much critical acclaim, but took a much darker turn in both his quivering vocal delivery and the very queer, sexually charged content, where a Perfume Genius comparison becomes pretty apt. And while 2017's Romaplasm opt for a lighter and slightly quirkier tone, especially in the content, embracing more of his terminally online humor, it was still pretty damn good. Now, it might seem like outside of a compilation or two, Wiesenfeld has been pretty quiet, but that couldn't be further from the truth. He's done a lot of TV soundtrack work, a lot of down-tempo ambient projects under the name Geotic, but now he's back to this moniker that broke him through, and it shouldn't be surprising that this doesn't sound like much of anything Baths has done before, but also completely makes sense for the evolution of his sound, where Obsidian was much darker and you felt the transgression in every single room. Here, the gay romance, sexually charged or otherwise, is bathed in light, like the subtle, drippy gallop of Eden, where to complement the warping, shuddering synths and percussion, there is live drums, live guitar, bass, and even some achingly lush strings as Wiesenfeld's nasal tones bend from quivering romanticisms to outright screams that are quite frankly more convincing than you would expect. It's again reminiscent of the tonal progression that Perfume Genius took in the 2010s. The parallels are really across the board, where Mike Hadrius' edge come in being a much stronger and more intense singer, but this easily being Bath's most accessible and direct album in terms of assembling hooks and grooves, and even texturally, where there are songs that would not be that far removed from 2000s adult alternative and indie rock, that works to his advantage, with a certain homespun, even more grounded relatability, like how the bass builds into a steady Americana-inflected atmosphere, complete with a saxophone on Eyewall, or the pianos around the warmer guitars and strings on Verity. Okay, accessible by his standards anyway. The chord progressions and tempos are still gonna roil across some of these compositions, and they're gonna have them warp and contorting in some pretty intriguing ways, where every moment of gorgeous orchestration could contort or shift with a pretty pronounced Björk influence, like how the gleaming, brittle acoustics will spike across wells of strings on Sea of Men, or how Peacocking just warps across key changes of the sputtering cascades of chaos. Although, with some tones that are this ragged, they can strike odd notes that don't quite work, like on Governed, even if I think the more intimate fade out is really effective in accentuating and contextualizing the melancholy of the song. And you know what, thematically, some of that warping instability is intentional. Wiesenfeld wrote about how these songs were driven less from the heart or the mind and more from the gut, the base, raw impulses that run on heaving, direct momentum, where the opening string of tracks are among some of the most nakedly horny Wiesenfeld has ever written, where Sea of Men and Homosexuals, they feel borderline carnal in the lust that is on display. But getting older and age has shifted some things since Obsidian, hell, just the passage of time since that album came out in 2013, and the juxtaposition between the hot and heavy nightclubs and hookups and the more idealized relationship, it's now very much in view, especially when you get songs where more tender respectability is brought to the forefront, and it becomes a bit of a loaded question of what it could even look like, especially as he's had friends who have had that relationship in heartbreakingly earnest and gorgeous detail, like with the strings on Cedar Staircase, especially when he doesn't feel as radical amidst the political climate that he describes Ungoverned, or doesn't vibe with a very LA gay and obnoxious scene on the wiry, careening yet remarkably fun American Mythos, and juxtaposed with just how raw the sex can be even within the same songs. Now, much of this album deals with him attempting to accept how it might never happen for him, linked to his own inconsistent career and living prospects and previous health issues that colored Obsidian. The sort of things that they kind of become relevant in relationships as you get older, you get into your 30s or 40s, with the yearning all the more painful in the blinding light of day as the touches of outdoor field recordings echo from the opener back to the long extended crescendo on the closer, the sound of a blooming flower, where he has to face the harshest truths about his crushes and then just burn it out of himself and become more of himself. I mean, that's kind of the thing that comes when you go from the gut. You can't deny how visceral and disquieting and even contradictory the impulses on display might be, where the courage he might deny in himself actually is kind of evident in throwing it all out there, being willing to embrace who he actually is at his core. In short, yeah, I think this album's absolutely great. Terrific hooks, mind-bending compositions with a direct accessibility that allows the visceral and the beautiful to shine at full volume. It is the best possible case of being behind the curve on an act for me, and then finding so much more to appreciate along the way with a great album. For me, head, heart, and gutter in unison. Do not sleep on this project. It's terrific. Check it out. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to see more, please be sure to like, share, drop comments, subscribe. Again, I was late to covering this, but I'm really thrilled that I finally got around to it. Unfortunately, even though I found this on bandwidth, I can't do bandwidth tonight. I got other stuff going on, but hey, stay tuned normally on Thursdays between 7 or 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time in the evenings. Hope to see some of you there if you actually want to come watch. Beyond that, though, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And if y'all want to get involved in helping support the channel, or get albums on my schedule, or yell at me on my Discord, link to my Patreon and YouTube memberships are right over there. Don't feel obligated. I understand it's real tough times out of there, but hey, options available. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.